Right now, in real time, someone is reading you. They know exactly which button to press, and they are pressing it. Every time you snapped back, every time you went cold, every time you stormed out or sent that message at 2 a.m., they were not reacting to you. They were running a test, and you failed. Your anger is not your power. Your anger is the door they walk through to take everything from you. You have been trained, not by a school, not by a book, but by every person who ever benefited from your reactions, to be emotionally predictable. A predictable man is a controllable man. Think about the last time you lost control. Who benefited? Who walked away calm while you were left shaking? Who smiled on the inside while you burned on the outside? This video is not about being cold. It is not about suppressing who you are. It is about something far more dangerous, far more powerful than anger ever gave you. Machiavelli figured this out 500 years ago. The men who mastered their inner world, they inherited the outer one, every single time. You were not born reactive. You were made that way. And what was made can be unmade. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will never look at your own emotions the same way again. This is Machiavelli's warning, and it arrives exactly on time. Let's be honest about something. You have tried, you have worked, you have shown up, and still, somehow, the wrong people keep advancing while you keep absorbing punishment. That is not an accident. You were taught by parents, by schools, by culture, that honest emotional expression is strength, that if you feel it, you should show it, that vulnerability is connection. And in some worlds, maybe that is true, but you are not living in that world. You are living in a world where your emotional reactions are data points and people collect them. Every time you got visibly angry, someone noted it. Every time you showed desperation, someone filed it away. Every time you needed something so badly that it leaked out of you, someone found their leverage. This is not paranoia. This is basic human power mechanics. The people who have won in business, in relationships, in politics, in life, they mastered this long before you were told it existed. You were not born losing. You were handed a map that leads to someone else's destination. And every emotional outburst, every visible need, every unguarded reaction, it was mileage on their journey, not yours. Think about the people who unsettled you most in life. Were they the loudest ones in the room? Or were they the ones you could never quite read? The unreadable man commands the room, not because he is smarter, not because he is richer, because uncertainty, genuine, earned uncertainty, is the oldest form of power. And the painful truth, the one no one told you, is that every time you reacted, you made yourself smaller. Not in their eyes, in your own architecture. You were not weak, you were uninformed, and that, right now, is changing. The systems around you, corporate, social, romantic, they were not designed to reward your honesty. They were designed to reward your composure. And composure is a skill, not a personality type. Let that land. Composure is a skill, which means you can acquire it, which means the man you are about to become is already inside you, waiting for the information. 5 centuries ago, one man sat in exile, stripped of everything, and wrote the book that the powerful have kept to themselves ever since. That man was Niccolo Machiavelli, and what he understood about power, about human nature, about emotional control, it will unsettle you, because it fits your life perfectly. This is not ancient philosophy. This is your life, translated. Niccolo Machiavelli was born in Florence in 1469. He served as a diplomat and senior official of the Florentine Republic. He negotiated with kings, popes, and mercenary commanders. He watched men rise and fall. He took notes. In 1512, everything was taken from him. The Medici returned to power. Machiavelli was arrested, tortured on the Strappado, accused of conspiracy. He survived. They exiled him to his farm. And in that exile, in that forced stillness, he wrote. He wrote The Prince, not as a self-help book, not as philosophy for academics, as a survival manual for men who refused to be destroyed by a world that did not play fair. The church tried to suppress it. Rulers banned it publicly and studied it privately. Henry III of France reportedly slept with a copy. Catherine de' Medici carried it everywhere. They all knew what it contained. What did it contain? The unvarnished truth about human nature, about power, about why good men get eaten alive in systems designed for pragmatic ones. Machiavelli wrote, and I want you to hear this like it was written to you today. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both, but above all, avoid being hated. He was not advocating cruelty. He was describing a landscape, the emotional landscape of power, and within it, the single greatest vulnerability a man can carry is the need to be loved so badly that he loses himself trying to earn it. And the emotion that makes you most vulnerable to manipulation, it is not sadness, it is not fear, it is reactive anger. Because anger announces your position, your limits, and your wounds all at once. Machiavelli's fundamental insight was this: the man who controls the interior controls the exterior. Dominate what is inside you, and nothing outside you can own you. 6 lessons from the man who mapped the game no one told you was being played. This knowledge is for protection, not destruction. Lesson 1. Your reaction is your report card. Every time you react, visibly, emotionally, immediately, you hand the person in front of you a detailed intelligence brief on exactly who you are. They now know your breaking point, your insecurities, what you value so much that threatening it will make you irrational. You handed this to them for free, and they will use it. You recognize this. Someone criticized your work in front of others. You fired back immediately, and the moment you did, they had won and you had lost, even if every word you said was true. Why does this happen? Because reactivity signals that your internal state is being controlled by external events. That means to anyone watching, you can be steered, and people who can be steered get steered. Starting today, build a 1-second rule. Before you respond to anything that triggers you, pause for 1 second, just one. That 1 second is the gap between reaction and choice, between a tool and a sovereign. 1 second, that is how long it takes to reclaim your sovereignty. 1 second is where Machiavelli's man lives, in the space between provocation and response. Drop this in the comments right now. My reaction is my report card, if that hit you where it should. The composed man in the room is not the quietest man. He is the most dangerous, because he is collecting information while everyone else is spending theirs. They are exhausting themselves with emotion. You are building intelligence. That asymmetry over time becomes insurmountable advantage. Lesson 1 is the foundation. Master your reaction and everything else becomes possible. Fail here and nothing else matters. Lesson 2. Never reveal what you need. The moment your need becomes visible, it becomes their weapon. You needed the job, they felt it in the interview, salary dropped. You needed the relationship to work, they felt it in the first month. The balance shifted. You needed their approval. They withdrew it on purpose. This is ancient mechanics. Machiavelli watched men destroy themselves by needing the approval of their advisors so desperately that the advisors became the real rulers. Nothing has changed. Starting today, practice strategic ambiguity. When you want something, mask the want, not with lies, with indifference. Genuine indifference is impossible to fake, but studied distance is a skill you can build. Attachment is not the problem. Need is not the problem. Broadcasting them is the problem. You can want everything, just let them believe you need nothing. Lesson 3. Use silence as a weapon. In a world addicted to noise, the man who can sit in silence without filling it commands the room. You have been in conversations where someone said something offensive and you immediately rushed to fill the silence with explanation, defense, justification. That rush is where you lose every single time. Drop this below. Silence is not emptiness, it is pressure. If you have ever lost by over-explaining. Silence forces the other person to interpret, and when people interpret, they project. They fill the silence with their own fears, their own guilt, their own assumptions. You let them do your work. Starting today, when provoked, when accused, when put on the spot,
Sit in the discomfort of silence for 3 full seconds before you respond. 3 seconds feels like an eternity. It changes everything. Lesson 4. Never let them see your wound. The thing that hurt you, the rejection, the betrayal, the humiliation, is information, and information given to the wrong person becomes a blade. You know the feeling. You told someone what broke you, not because you were weak, but because you trusted. And 6 months later, they used it. In a meeting, in an argument, in front of people whose respect you needed. Machiavelli understood that the men who survived the courts, the men who outlasted their rivals, were not the men without wounds. They were the men who never showed them. Starting today, choose your confessors with extreme precision. Not everyone who asks how you're doing deserves the real answer. Protect your wounds the way a general protects his supply lines. Without them, he cannot fight.
Drop this. Not everyone who asks how I am deserves the real answer. That one line might save you more than anything else in this video. Lesson 5. Master the art of strategic withdrawal. The man who always engages always loses. Machiavelli's most dangerous leaders knew when not to fight was itself a form of dominance. Someone disrespects you online. You engage, you explain, you defend, and now you are spending your greatest energy on a person who deserves none of it. That is not passion, that is a trap, and you walked right in. Psychological withdrawal is not weakness, it is resource management. Every argument you win that was not worth having cost you something you cannot get back. Attention, energy, composure, these are finite. Spend them like a king. Starting today, before you engage in any conflict, ask one question. Does winning this actually matter in 30 days? If not, withdraw. Not angrily, not visibly, just redirect your power to a theater that deserves it. The man who cannot be provoked into wasting his energy becomes genuinely frightening to those who need your reaction to feel powerful. Remove the reaction, you remove their power source. Lesson 6. Your stillness is your signal. In a world of constant emotional noise, genuine stillness does not just look powerful, it is power. When you walk into a room and you are visibly unbothered, not performed, not fake, but genuinely at rest in yourself, people feel it before you speak. That is not charisma, that is evidence of interior work. This is the destination of everything Machiavelli pointed toward. Not the cold man, not the calculating man, the man so at home in his own interior that the exterior world, its provocations, its chaos, its tests, simply cannot move him. Starting today, practice arriving still. Before any meeting, any confrontation, any high-stakes interaction, take 60 seconds alone to arrive at stillness. Not to suppress, to collect. There is a difference. Suppression creates pressure. Collection creates power. The world will test this. Someone will push harder specifically because you stopped reacting. They need your chaos to feel safe in theirs. Do not give it to them. Drop this in the comments. I am the still point. Not because nothing matters, but because what matters most is what I do next. 6 lessons, 1 truth. The man who controls his interior controls his world. Not sometimes, every time. This is not aspiration, this is architecture. You are building something that cannot be taken from you. They tried to read you. They found nothing they could use. That is not a small victory. That is the whole game. And they will try again because they do not yet know who you have become. Before we get to the climax, drop this one below. I am the destination, not the pursuit, because that is exactly where you are heading. Now let me speak to the version of you that showed up to this video. The version who reacted, who snapped, who sent the message, who defended, who explained when silence would have been sovereign. That version of you served a purpose. He absorbed the hits so you could understand the game. He lost so you could learn the rules. He was not weak, he was uninformed. But that era is over. The old you is dead. What stands here now is something else. something that has been watching, learning, and waiting. You understand how manipulation works. You understand the mechanics of provocation. You see the game from above it now. You are a weapon, pointed at your own future. Not pointed at them, not pointed backward, not pointed at the wounds or the people who created them. Pointed at what you were building, what you were becoming, what was always meant to be yours. You belong to no one. Not to their opinion of you, not to their reaction to your growth, not to the version of you they were comfortable with because that version never challenged them. That contract is broken. You are the only signatory now. Machiavelli spent his exile building the architecture of power from nothing, stripped of his position, stripped of his city, stripped of everything except the one thing they could not take, his understanding. No one can take your understanding. What you have taken from this video, no betrayal removes, no manipulation reverses. No one can unknow you from this. You chose to understand the game. That is not recoverable. That is permanent. That is yours. If this video found you at the right moment, you already know whether to subscribe. Not because I am asking, but because a man who is building something recognizes a resource when he finds one. This channel exists for men who are done being readable, done being steerable, done reacting. Every video here is a tool. The subscription is just the door. Share this with a man who you watched lose a room to his own emotions. Not to embarrass him, because 500 years ago, a man wrote the answer down, and he deserves to find it. The next video in this series goes further, because Machiavelli had more to say about the specific traps men walk into when they are finally becoming powerful. The traps that are only set for men who are growing. Watch for it. One question, leave it below. Think about it for as long as it takes. Here it is. What would the most powerful version of you have done differently in the last situation where you lost control? And what does that tell you about who you are still becoming?